This year, I dedicated myself to rereading Harry Potter and vlogging about the experience. This is Maggie Rereads Harry Potter, part the 7th, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. We are finally here. We have finally made it to Deathly Hallows. Oh, it's so great. So, I had some thoughts about this book, and I'm just going to get them up on my phone. I took a lot of notes and shit, so first of all, I really loved at the beginning how Harry was riding in the motorcycle with Hagrid while they were trying to escape from Privet Drive, because it makes this really nice parallel wherein in the first book when Harry arrives at Privet Drive, he's arriving with Hagrid in the motorcycle, and then he is leaving Privet Drive with Hagrid in the motorcycle, and it's like, parallels, I love it. Because J.K. Rowling knows exactly what she's doing when it comes to all of this kind of stuff. Second of all, I don't particularly like Dumbledore. I think that he is one of the most morally gray characters in fiction. Because here he is doing all this nice stuff for Harry and helping him out, giving him the invisibility cloak. But at the same time, he spent his entire life grooming Harry to die. He knew that he would have to die in order to save the world, and so he spent his entire life grooming Harry to listen to him and trust him no matter what. Like, for example, there was no reason for Harry to not tell anybody about finding the Horcruxes, but because Dumbledore told him not to, Harry's like, no, we mustn't tell anybody, no one can know. Which was kind of like, I don't like it. And to top it off too, Dumbledore with his dabbling in the dark arts in the past and his friendship with Grindelwald. I thought that Dumbledore and Grindelwald's relationship was extremely interesting, especially the fact that via word of God, Dumbledore was in love with Grindelwald. And yeah. Funnily enough, my phone kept trying to correct Grindelwald to Grinder. So I guess that they know about the gayness as well. And his whole ideas of muggle kind is not as good as wizard kind, and so we need to be on top for the betterment of the muggles. It was all very, like, I want to say Nazi-esque, with the whole, oh, we must get rid of this group for the greater good. And a lot of the stuff in Harry Potter is very Nazi-esque. So, like, Voldemort, for example, the big statue in the Ministry of Magic with a wizard sitting on a chair made out of muggles, and it says magic is might. And yeah, there's a lot of different things that are Nazi-esque in this book, and I truly believe that some of young Dumbledore's ideas are Nazi-esque. It's like, this book is really great as well for different metaphors. So like, Voldemort's uprising is representative of a fascist takeover of a government, right? J.K. Rowling has said that Lupin's whole relationship with being a werewolf is meant to be a stand-in for the AIDS epidemic. And that's one of those things that just hits me hard as like, wow, that's powerful, you know what I mean? Also, just in continuation from a previous video, everyone in Harry Potter is a complete and utter savage. So, Hermione, Scrimgeour says to Hermione, "Are you planning to follow a career in magical law, Miss Granger?" And then Hermione responds with, "No, I'm hoping to do some good in the world." Savage! That is just savage. Savage Hermione. And all of these characters are savages. Oh, speaking of savages, I remember the first time I read this book. The first time I read this book, it was in like 4th grade. And I was reading it on the playground, and I got to Molly Weasley screaming, "Not my daughter, you bitch." And that made my life, because, oh my god, Molly Weasley said a swear word, and I needed to gather all of my friends and tell them Molly Weasley just said a swear word. And yeah, savages. Also, as a Ron-Hermione shipper, this book is the best one yet. There's this one point in chapter 10 where Hermione and Ron are sleeping on the floor, and Harry says, her fingers inches from Ron's. Harry wondered whether they had fallen asleep holding hands. The idea made him feel strangely lonely. And simultaneously I'm like, aw, Harry. And simultaneously I'm like, yes, Ron and Hermione. Yes, you do that. You have romance. And then, of course, I liked how they did it in the movie, but of course this was better. Hang on a moment, we've forgotten someone. Who? Asked Hermione. The house elves. They'll all be down in the kitchen, won't they? You mean we ought to get them fighting? Asked Harry. No, said Ron seriously. I mean we should tell them to get out. We don't want any more Dobbies, do we? We can't order them to die for us. There was a clatter as the basilisk fans cascaded out of Hermione's arms. Running at Ron, she flung them around his neck and kissed him full on the mouth. Ron threw away the fangs and broomstick he was holding and responded with just such enthusiasm that he lifted Hermione off her feet. And that is the best book kiss that I've ever read, rivaled only by the kiss in the Battle of the Labyrinth with Annabeth and Percy. This is the best literary kiss ever. And then, of course, there's Harry that goes, "Is this the moment?" Harry asked weakly. He raised his voice. "Oi! There's a war going on here!" Yeah, I love Harry Potter. So yeah, as a hardcore Ron-Hermione shipper, that really made my life. So there's this bit where Harry is looking at a photo of the Marauders, right? And he starts saying that Pettigrew looked like he was just happy to be there, blah, 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 blah. And it was interesting to me because he's describing Pettigrew from the point of view that he knows that he's a traitor. But at that time, he was just as much a martyr as James, Remus, and Sirius. And it reminded me of something that I read on Tumblr, which was, like it or not, Peter was a martyr. The martyrs weren't James, Remus, Sirius, and Karen Gillan as Lily Potter, which struck a chord with me, I don't know. I felt really bad for Ron during the whole 3-month-long camping trip because Ron is my favorite of the three of them, and I felt for him that he had such a hard time. Especially, he was an emotional person, and especially with the Horcrux, it was making him more emotional, and I felt bad for him because Harry and Hermione were like, oh, we just need to do what we need to do, and not really feeling any empathy for him. But I felt a lot of empathy for Ron, especially as someone who grew up used to living in such great conditions like Ron did, where he never went hungry, he never had to sleep on the ground, etc., etc. And yeah. I thought that Pettigrew's death was fitting because he died the way he lived. He betrayed the Potters while he was alive, and he died betraying Voldemort, which I thought that was enough of a redemption for Pettigrew. And I was disappointed that they didn't really have that in the movie. Luna's mural that she paints of her friends with like the word friends, friends, friends all around it made me feel some kind of way because I appreciate my friends in that same kind of way. As someone who doesn't make friends very easily, I feel very dependent almost on the friends that I do make, and Luna's mural made me think of that. And the whole killing of Dobby. I understand why J.K. Rowling killed Dobby because people die in war, but why did it have to be Dobby? And then there's this line that Griphook says. He says to Harry, "You're an unusual wizard. You dug the grave." And I knew that that line was coming. I had remembered that line, but it still gave me chills when I read that line. Okay. Also, as a Slytherin, there were certain things that made me annoyed in this book. When they meet Neville and the rest of Dumbledore's army in the Room of Requirement, there's this talk about how all of the house's banners are up on the walls. but the silver and green of Slytherin alone were absent. Of course, because we can't have any good Slytherins, can we? And then, of course, there's Dumbledore saying to Snape, "Sometimes I think we sort too soon." Now, I don't like Snape. I think that he is an irredeemable bastard. But to say that we sort too soon is to say explicitly that there is no way for there to be a good Slytherin. I don't think that Snape can be redeemed. Even just because he wanted to fuck Lily Potter does not mean that he gets away with being complicit in the torture of children for years. It's just, Speaking of which, Narcissa Malfoy lied to the Dark Lord to protect her son, risked her life, and yet Snape is the one that we hold up as the good Slytherin. Also, I was kind of disappointed with the death of Voldemort. Like, I didn't think about it this way when I first read the book, but I'm a little disappointed with the Disney death of Voldemort. Because J.K. Rowling is good at writing morally gray characters, but Harry could not be morally gray for some reason. So I would have preferred if Harry actually needed to cast a killing curse to kill Voldemort, because it shows a sort of desperate times call for desperate measures kind of thing. When Harry does Expelliarmus and the curse rebounds, I think that that's a Disney death. It's like, oh, we can't have anything dying in here. We can't have our main character be morally gray. So that's the end. In rereading the books, I noticed a lot more things that I didn't notice the first time around, and I feel like I appreciated them more reading them as an adult. When I was a young child, I really, really, really enjoyed these books, but I didn't really understand them on a literary level, and I think that through reading them again, I finally been able to comprehend them on a literary scale, and I really enjoyed that. So yeah. With that, I leave you with a few words, nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak, and I won't be seeing you next time because I'm done. Pew!